Hey everyone, Jordan here. A couple of weeks ago I rebuilt my winning system from the Intel Great PC build of 2023. When I started to plan that video I happened to mention it to Scan, who said, why don't we send out some additional parts so you can make a second part to the video where you turn it into a monster system. So today we're going to be changing a few parts to really turn the performance up to 11, but trying to keep the appearance fairly close to the original. I've also benchmarked the system as well to give you a comparison at the end as well. But for now, let's get this desk cleared and start the upgrade. So I've taken the motherboard out of the case and it's all ready for us to work on. Now I've also taken out the processor. In the original build I would have used a 13700K, but Intel kindly sent a 14700. In this case we're going to upgrade again to the 14900K, so that's 24 cores, 32 threads. Absolute monster of a CPU. You could possibly get away with running one of those CPUs on a board like this, but personally I do like to recommend that you scale your motherboard to your CPU. It's kind of like having a Lamborghini and running it on like Toyota Prius tyres. It doesn't really make sense. You want something that kind of matches a little bit better. So in this case I have got a different motherboard underneath, all ready to go, that Scan have kindly sent out. This is our first upgrade from them, the Z790E Gaming Wi-Fi 2. Like I said, kindly sent out by Scan Computers. If you're not familiar with them, they are one of the UK's leading retailers. They have a whole host of different components, pro audio, video gear, even some musical instruments. I'll link them down below if you want to check them out. Big thank you to them for sending out this motherboard and also some other parts that I'll mention as we go throughout the video. So the Wi-Fi 2, this is a higher end board, and we'll have a full overview of this on the channel just after this video if you want to see it in a little bit more depth. Pretty much the board before you get to the Hero series, so a very high end one, Gen 5 support for PCIe and also NVMe, multiple slots as well, and also an absolutely stacked rear I/O to go with it. So let's get this latch up and get the 14900K installed. Let's drop it in there, a little bit of a wiggle. And that cover will pop off. Make sure you keep that in case you need to RMA the board. I have a little upgrade for our storage as well. We now have some Dominator titanium from Corsair. This is also 6400 but a faster cache latency. Not really necessary for real world performance, but it is a nice little visual upgrade as well to the system, and I will of course be setting these to white again like the previous one. So opening slots 2 and 4, and then we'll get these installed. For the SSD, I'm going to use the same Firecooler 530 from the previous build. It's a Gen 4 drive, and we do have Gen 5 support on this board, but it's basically so I can easily do the benchmarks and tests, so we have a comparable system. We're mainly focusing on the GPU and also the CPU upgrades in this one anyway, but you will be seeing this board again in some other videos with some more Gen 5 content, so get subscribed and ding the bell so you don't miss it. Little covers on the thermal pads, and then we'll just install this on the right angle on the left hand side. Bring that latch over and that's ready. I've already taken off the heatsink side for the other one, and then we'll just bring that back down on top. So for our cooling, I'm going to use the same Noctua NH-U12A that I used in the previous build. For a 14900K, I'd usually recommend something like an NH-D15 if you're going to run it on air. But I have seen some reviews of this cooler that can run the i9s okay, so we will find out more when I've done some testing with this later on. But let me get this mounted. I'm going to use the same mounting stuff from last time, so the Secufirm 2. This will just go through the back of the motherboard like so, and then we've got the little blue spaces to go on, and then the brackets with the curve facing outwards for both sides, and then we just got some little thumb screws to secure those down. Little line of thermal paste, and then bring the cooler down on the top and do it up nice and evenly. Now for the power for these, I'm actually going to go backwards because there's two headers on the board just at the bottom of the socket. There was the same on the other motherboard as well, but I just didn't notice them. They're quite tricky to get at, but I'm going to use them for this scenario. So we now have the i9 and the cooler all ready to rock on our beefed up motherboard. I'm going to get this into the case and I can tell you about the GPU. Now I have the motherboard transplanted into the Fractal North. Fairly easy to do as well because all the cables lined up from the previous board. I've also added the extra 4 pin for the EPS connector, so it's now 8+8 rather than 8+4. If it's available, I do like to fill the slot. I think it just looks a little bit neater. I've also got the Corsair custom cable kit, and the PSU was 1000 watts, so it will be plenty for the final part, which is the Asus and Noctua collaboration RTX 4080 Super. An absolute monster card. Again, massive thank you to Scan Computers for sending this out for me to look at. Using this in a few different builds. I've also got a more Noctua themed system coming out very soon, and I will have a dedicated video on this if you want to see a bit more performance as we're going to just do a few different games in this video, but we'll have my full suite and testing and everything in that video. I'll link that on the card when it's live. Let me get the box out of the way and bring the card in. An absolute 4-slot monster, but let me get this installed. We can then fire it up and see how the system performs. So let's bring in this card. I have got it set to performance mode as well. I really do like the back plate on this, very nice brushed brown, but let's see if this will actually fit. I hope so. We have got a little cover we can take off if not, but oh no, we're looking good. Looks like we'll be able to fit this in okay. Oh, there we go, first try. Very nice. So let's just get those screws in. And lastly, just to get the 12-volt high power connected, it's actually reverse connected to the NVIDIA one, so you just need to bend it around and then clip it in. There we go. We'll get that cable comb coming up just to get those cables nice and tidy. A little sense wire needs to be tucked through. So there we go. That is the completed upgrade, gone from a 14700K to a 14900K, and then from the 4070 to a 4080S. What a jump there as well. So that is now the completed system. Noctua fans on that as well, so it's going to be very cool. And of course on the CPU and the rear exhaust. So now all that's left to do is get some benchmarks going. I'll give you a little bit of a close-up look, and I'll give you my overall thoughts. So I hope you've enjoyed the closer look at the system. Also tested this, and I'll put the graphs on the screen for you now. I've done the more intensive titles of my CPU and GPU testing to give you an idea of the upgrades boost over the first version. For the dedicated software, I've done 3D Mark, Time Spy and Steel Nomad, then Geekbench 5, Cinebench and finally Blender Render Test, which I've put on a separate chart as that's got 3 different elements to it. For the CPU, there's a little bit of a jump, but nothing massive, as there's just 4 cores difference. The real jump is when we go to the GPU benchmarks. I tried Starfield, Crisis Remastered, Dirt 5 and Cyberpunk, with and without ray tracing. Averaging out all the titles, there's a 31% uplift going from the 4070 to a 4080 Super. In fairness, we are going up the stack of SKUs by about 4 jumps, because we now have the 4070 Super, 4070 Ti Super and now the 4080 Super. But this was more of a let's see what we can do upgrade over here. Here's what I recommend, given that the V2 of this system is about £1,000 more than the original. If you're wondering about temperatures for the U12A, I saw a maximum temperature of 90 degrees, even during synthetic benchmarks as well, so I take my hat off to the cooler. It's done very well, especially considering we have a super hot CPU. It actually worked out to a 69, nice, 0.7 degree delta. And for the GPU hotspot, we saw a maximum of 76.3, so before taking off the ambient, we'll make it a nice 55 degree delta. Very impressed with the cooling on that card, but I was kind of expecting it to be pretty good, given it's got 2 Noctua 120mm fans on it. Now, we're also very quiet during the gameplay, which you do partly expect, but I did have it set to performance mode, so really good considering it's on that rather than silent mode. As I mentioned as well, I will be having a full review on the channel very soon, so get subscribed and ding the bell so you don't miss it. Now, to keep this video from dragging out, I'm going to close it out here, but if there's anything else you do want to know, then please leave a comment and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you to Scan for sending out all the additional parts for this upgrade. I'll have them all linked in the video description box below if you want to pick any up. And of course, thanks to Intel for making this video series possible in the first place. They also sent out the 14900K in the 14th gen press kit last year, so thanks to them for that as well. Thank you all for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Leave a like if you did and get subscribed, and I'll see you all in the next one.